So let's look at the difference with curves. So again, as you can see, with curves, the challenge is it just says, here's a line, go, and it's kind of like, alrighty. So the good news is it still has those same eyedroppers, so I could use exactly that same method. So one way people use curves is they completely ignore that line and they use the eyedroppers and click like I did a moment ago and click on the black point and the white point. And then if they wanted to adjust the midtones, they just use the curve. So for example, click on the black point and the white point that I measured previously. And then in the middle here, if I click on this, this is kind of the equivalent of that gray triangle that I was moving to the left, pushing that center point up a little bit as just saying, and now lighten the midtones. So if nothing else, starting out in curves, that's not a bad idea. Is click on, use the eyedroppers, and then if necessary, move that center point up a little bit. But frankly, what I would do is one of the best improvements to curves, and I wish I could tell you when this came out, but it was a while ago, probably not CC, but probably Photoshop CS, I don't know, 4 or 5-ish. I have no idea. This little thing right here says on image control. Let me first do one thing. I'm going to get rid of these little color samplers so I don't need them. This on image control is really nice because imagine that you had this crazy, amazing touchscreen device that doesn't exist, where you could say, that sky right there, I want it to be darker or lighter. And you're actually pointing right at the spot, touching the screen, and as you move up and down, you're going darker, lighter. That's what this is. So you can take this on image control and say, over here in the grass, I'd like that to be a little darker. And over here in this mountaintop, I'd like that to be a little brighter. And it just made a curve for me. So I didn't have to click on somewhere and go move it up or down. I just visually say, right there, darker, lighter. So you can add, and here's the big difference between curves and levels. Levels had 3 triangles. Curves can have multiple nodes on the curve. So you're not limited to highlight, shadow, midtones. You can have multiples. And watch this time. See where my eyedropper is in the mountaintops? Now move your eyes over to the curves. See how that little dot is moving around? So as I move this, I know now I'm right up in the highlights. So if I now click and hold, I know I'm affecting the highlights because I'm up at that top corner. If I click down here, see how that little moving around dot is towards the bottom? That tells me now I'm in the shadow areas. So now I'm darkening or lightening shadows. So in the good old days, and my good friend Ben Wilmore is like the master of explaining curves the way that, so if you really want to get into every single thing about curves, look up one of Ben's classes here on Creative Live that he talks about curves because he goes into amazing detail and understands it like no one else. I started learning all that stuff and I thought, but boy, when you've got those on image controls, that does so much of what you need to know. Now, what it does, it adds those points so you can still look at it and say, I think that one needs a little more or a little less, or you can just drag it right off. So if there's a point that you realize later on, I wish I hadn't done that because now this nice smooth curve has a in it, and you're like, I don't really want that, you just click on that point and just literally drag it right off the line, and that kind of resets it. So on image control, I think, is definitely a place you want to work with a lot because it takes out a lot of the mystery of curves as to where do I know, how do I know where to start. The other thing that's important to know, let me actually show you one other thing. I use the on-image control so much that I found myself wishing that it was automatically selected because right now it's not. Every time you open a curves adjustment layer, you have to click on it. And I would like to think that perhaps I can take a small amount of credit for this, but probably not, because suddenly there was an update to Photoshop where one of the options in here was auto-select targeted adjustment layer, which is what that is actually called. So that means as soon as you turn that on, from now on, as soon as you add curves, you're ready to go because you don't have to go click on that little icon. It's already selected. And that's a preference you can turn on. Once it's on, it'll stay on. So now it's much simpler. You open an image, add curves adjustment layer, and on the image start using that targeted adjustment layer, or TAT as some people call it, which is just weird to me. But anyway, that's why I call it on image because it makes better sense to me. But that's what that allows me to do.